Good afternoon, Yudi. What's up?
It's amazing. The weather is beautiful. I drove through from Newark Airport to here, and New York on a summer day is beautiful. People are walking around, gorgeous people actually. Beautiful people are walking. The sun is shining. It's beautiful.
Yudi, tell us your story. Where were you born, and what was your first foray into music? Where were you born? What's your story?
I was born in London, England, in a wonderful place. Some people say it's like the Riviera of London. It's called Stamford Hill. It's a place where it's just like, one of those places where people come from all over the world on holidays, and it's like people can't get enough of it. And this place in Stamford Hill is a place that I was born. I grew up in the Chabad community in Stamford Hill. It's actually quite close to the Arsenal football stadium and also to the Tottenham Hotspur football stadium. Of course, growing up, we weren't even allowed to know that those two places existed, but it was close there. And I grew up in Stamford Hill in the Chabad community, and I was singing from when I was a little child. From before I could talk, apparently my parents said I was singing.
You have some family music history, right?
Yes, well, both of my Zaydas were Chazzanim. In fact, my father's father was a full-time Chazzan.
What was his name?
His name was Aaron Dov Cohen. He was it was in, where was it? I think Sunderland, in a place called Sunderland in England.
England?
In England, my father's father. And my mother's father, funnily enough, Beryl Levin, was a sheikhet and also a Chazan Bal Tefillah, but he was a shliach of the Frierdiker Rebbe.
Where?
He was in Ireland for a little bit. In fact, I just discovered that I'm an Irish citizen. Last year I became an Irish citizen just to get the Irish, who are the most anti-Semitic country in the world. I thought another Jew become a citizen of Ireland. And because by birthright, because my mother was born there when my Zayda was in Belfast.
Really?
Yeah.
What was the purpose? A good passport?
Well, it's a European Union passport. So
the UK is not enough?
Well, the UK, no. The UK today is not a European. In fact, what's interesting is that Belfast is part of Northern Ireland, which is part of the UK. But if you're a citizen in Belfast, you automatically get a passport for the Republic of Ireland as well. It's a European passport.
What was your first time you did your official singing?
The first time was we made a recording in the Lubavitch school there called Miyar. It was a tape.
Record or tape?
A tape. It was a tape. It was a record. Tapes. We were very advanced at that time with technology. We had tapes, and it was a record the school made of Lubavitch Nigunim. Miyar miyad murahi pronasa. Ben Sin Shem Tov, and because Ben Sin Shem Tov was the founder of Lubavitch in London. He was there. So his song was Miyar miyad mura, and so we made a tape, and I sang a bunch of solos on there, like Ach Lelakim.
What was the first time you got that round of applause? That first, you're on the stage and...
Oh.
Is that like a moment in time in a singer's life?
It's a good question, actually. I don't remember, actually. I don't remember. That's when I got around. I got a lot of attention with it as a kid, and I was very uncomfortable with it as a child. It was very interesting as a child.
Because?
I was uncomfortable with the attention. I mean, obviously I enjoyed it, but there was certain uncomfortability.
So every time you walk in, sing a song.
Every time anywhere I'd go, sing a song, you know what I'm saying? That's how it would be.
How would be the first time you got paid to sing?
Oh, I'm glad you think that I've actually gotten paid to sing at this point in my life. The first time I was a kid, and I remember Bobby Vogel, who was a balabas in London, a great man, and he enjoyed my singing very much.
Yeah.
And he had a birthday, I think, and his family did a birthday celebration for him, and they got me to sing. I think I may have been, and they paid me £100. Now we're talking about 30 years ago. I think that's worth like $30,000 now. No, I'm kidding. And
How
I'm
old were
saying
you?
for me, I think I was 12 or 13 at the time, and I was like, oh my gosh, I got £100. It was amazing. That was the first time I got paid for singing. Yeah.
Did you do any music school?
Not as a child, but as an adult. I have a degree in opera
From?
in South Africa. I did a 4-year degree in it's called the vocal arts.
But then you were well into your singing career,
I was
right?
well into my singing career, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But I studied voice all the way along in different teachers and with all the
Can you tell us the story of Silva Zemmer?
Oh boy, that's a long one. Can I drink some of it?
Sure.
Drink some
Need some water? Yeah.
fruit-infused seltzer water. This bubula is really beautiful, by the way.
Thank you, Yudi.
It's very nice.
Here's a bottle of water. Tell us the story of Silva Zemmer, your dad, like all the juicy details, please.
And what happened was it's a long. It's a quite. I have to say that I've been very privileged. Actually, it's been a very big privilege to have had this from when I was a child. So Silva Zemmer happened. I had sung on this recording in London, and a friend of mine, also a cousin, a very close friend, almost like a brother, Mendy Solomon is a shliach now in
Short Hills.
Short Hills. We're very close. Our families are close, and he's closer. So he was in New York. I think he was learning in Torah at the time. I'm not sure where he was here, and he was friends with Avraham Rosenberg from Silva Zemmer, and he said, "You got to get this kid to sing." And I remember that I remember the call coming into London because I think we had been told that he's going to call. I'm in London.
How old were you?
I think the first time was 11 or 12. It was before my bar mitzvah, the first time. And I remember they called, and in Stamford Hill, the Riviera of Hackney. The Hackney Riviera. Wow, yeah. It was complicated because they weren't sure whether to allow me to sing because it was for a Hasidic Shabbat to be singing. Yeah, it was. I had to ask my shpiyim, and I asked my at the time Factor Mendel Maraza, my great uncle. My mother said because it's my mother's uncle. And so my mother said, you have to ask Factor Mendel if it suits a Hasidic Shabbat to sing on a tape. It's true. That is actually what happened. And he said he couldn't see why not, which was quite, and so. So anyway, the bottom line. So they called and they spoke to my father. And then we were going on a class trip to New York for Yud Shvat. I think it was before Pride, before Bar Mitzvah. So I must have been about 12. It was our class annual trip. Well, not annual trip. It was a pre-Bar Mitzvah trip. And we went to we came to New York. And I remember the class were going to see the United Nations. And I went to the studio. And I remember Avraham Rosenberg gave me the recording. I think it was literally the day before. He came with a tape, met me in Fahrenheit, with a tape with the songs for, which was then became volume 3. And the next day I went to the studio. He took me to the studio in Teaneck. And before we went to the studio, there was a pizza store next door. And he said to me, Yudi, take whatever pizza you want. And I said, no, you're joking. I can have whatever pizza, any pizza you want. He said, whatever you want. That was the first time I had such a thing in my life. Because in the Riviera of Hackney, they were into much more sophisticated food, like pitcha and gefilte fish. But like here, we didn't make pizza wasn't a thing in London. And I remember I never had a beautiful slice of pizza with mushrooms, and I was like, and it was And then we went to the studio, and we recorded a bunch of songs, including Ar Chadash, which was nice.
Kinicham? No.
Kinicham was the second year, was a year later. Ar Chadash, which was which turned out to be a big hit. And I never met the kids from the choir. The only kid I met from the choir, actually, later on in life, I met some of the guys. But the only, I can't remember his name. There was a guy who sang, he was in the studio also recording his solo. Otherwise that was the time I met the kids. That was the first year. And then they gave me this JVC cassette player. It was a double cassette player with auto reverse. Do you remember that? You remember even cassettes?
No, I remember the double thing.
You remember cassettes? Do you remember cassettes?
Yeah, I remember you were able to copy one to the other.
Yeah, so you had one, it ended the side, and then if you got the really fancy ones, it had it turned over automatically. Auto reverse. And then, so the cheaper ones didn't have...
So that was your payment?
Yeah, they didn't pay me. It was but they gave me that as a gift. And boy, did I treasure that thing. I came back to London with it, and I had it for a few years afterwards. I remember even taking it with me to Yeshiva. So I went to Yeshiva when I was 16. I must have had it for 4 or 5 years.
Where?
In Golders Green, in London, when I went to Yeshiva in Kingsley Way. And I remember fitting a switch in the back of the battery place because we weren't allowed to have radios in Yeshiva. And Rabbi Gordon would come around and check to see if you've got radios on your... So I wired a switch into the battery compartment, and then if you came and turned on the radio, it didn't work. But if you pressed the switch, then it worked. And I had that stereo for a long time.
That was your escape.
Huh?
Is that where you learned opera on the radio?
No, I used to listen mostly to just to like news and talk. At that time, I didn't listen. Actually, I did. That was the time that it was that a time when I got into opera. It was the 1990. Could it have been 1994? No, it had to be an early 1990 World Cup. Was in Italy, and the theme song was Pavarotti's Nessun Dorma. And I remember, oh my God, my father used to have these opera records, but they were put away in a cupboard. We weren't allowed to listen to them. We were only allowed to listen to Lubavitch Nigunim and Mozart's Nigunim, Achsidish Nigunim. In Stamford Hill, the Riviera of Hackney, even of our own Freedom, Matchel David was banned at the time. Banned.
So in your house, you didn't have them free run David?
Well, I did listen to it. I would sneak around and we would listen to them. But like when we went to my cousin's house, my aunt's house, yeah, I swear to you. So we would have like, it was, yeah.
Got you. Then, what was your first Chazzan position?
My first paid Chazzan position, I did Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur in Fort Myers, Florida. I don't even remember what year it was.
Rabbi Nicholas?
Yeah. I even remember it. I'm talking about, like...
How old were you?
I don't even know. It must have been my first year in on a term. Maybe I was 18 or something like that. That was my first.
What was your first shul position?
Full-time shul position?
Part-time or
as a chazan. Oxford Shul in Johannesburg.
You were married or single?
No, I was single. I was a bach. I went out to teach for Torah Academy. The Torah Academy is a Chabad school, and they have these their schools bring up bachrim. And I went with my friend Moshe Frank.
How old were you?
So we had South Africa. We had finished. I finished Slicha, and I'd done Slichas in Hong Kong. I'd worked for my arts in Hong Kong. Spent 2 months in China. Before China was built up, bro, it was unbelievable. The place was like gravel roads and everything like that. And and then I was sitting in 770 as a bacha, and Moshe Frank comes over to me and says to me, maybe you want to go to South Africa, and also David Weinberg also. I think they had just been there together. And sounds cool. Went to South Africa and spent a few months there teaching.
So you went there to be a chassan?
No. I went there to teach.
Oh, and then someone offered you.
And then what happened was the last Shabbos I was there. The last Shabbos before I left. How crazy is that, huh? The last Shabbos before I left, Because I was singing, I was singing, but I wasn't singing professionally at the time. And somebody said, the Chazzan of Oxford Shore, Rabbi Bernard was the rabbi at that time, had left. At that time it was been Ari Klein, and he had left. He had moved to America. They didn't have a Chazzan, and so he said, "Why don't you do a Shabbos there?" He organized it. I don't remember who it was. I think Mendy Klein at the time was conducting the choir. And I did a Shabbos there, and then they offered me to come back for my holidays. And I remember coming back to Crown Heights afterwards and negotiating with them about going back for Shoshone and Kippur. We learned chutzpah growing up here in the village. That's one thing we learned. Chutzpah.
And
think about it.
You got
and then I got back. Yeah, I got back to Shoshone and Kippur, and I was like, and South Africa was the extreme opposite of Stanford and how I grew up. I loved it. I loved the place. People were living like they live like a joyous Yiddishkeit where you can, which I believe is actually Yiddishkeit. Every religion, whatever it is, you're supposed to be happy. It's supposed to bring you joy and pleasure and growth, and that's how they live in South Africa. That's how the Jews live. So I fell in love with it.
You moved there?
So I was coming back and forth to New York because I was waiting to get married at the time. But it was, every time I came back to New York, I thought, what am I doing here? And I went back to South Africa. So over a period of 4 years, I was at Oxford Shul, and I was sort of coming back and forth. I was there
How
and
often?
here.
Would you come back and how often?
I don't remember, but a bunch of times.
And then?
Then I came back here. One time then I said, okay, finished, I have to go. I think I'm probably now, I'm like, so this is, I don't know how old I was. Okay, that's it. You have to go back and get married and find a wife and all that kind of stuff. And so I left and I actually gave my job up officially and also introduced it to somebody else. Nahli Levine actually took over. I got it, him to take over my job there. But then when I got back to Crown Heights, I again said, what am I doing here? And so a couple of months later, I got on a plane and went back to South Africa without a job. And I stayed at my good friend Wayne Smith's house. And then Waverly Shul, which is another shul there, were looking for a chazan, but they were looking to pay the cheapest thing. That's that was, if you were to ask me what was the shul where you were paid the least, that was Waverly Shul. And so they only gave me the job because I needed it and I was happy to take it for whatever they gave it to me, and they were looking to pay very little. I took the job there, and then 2 years later, after being there, then I was already kind of almost settled in South Africa. I loved it. And after 2 years there, I said, okay, goodbye, I decided I'm going full-time into opera, because now...
You were single or married?
I was single.
How old were you then? 26, 7?
Must have been in Waverly Shul. I got married at 29, and at Waverly was 26, 27, something like that. 28 even. No, yeah, 29, 28 to 29. And I said, that's it, I'm done. I'm going down to Italy. I was still single. I could do what I want. The worst thing that can happen to you, chas v'shalom, if you're single, is you could drop dead. If you're married, you're not even allowed to drop dead. You have a family. So I thought I'd just take, I made the decision to go, and I had started my degree actually already at the Pretoria Technical University. I was already driving back and forth every morning, every day. And then I was sitting at the Simchas Beis Yeshiva in Torah Academy, and was then to become my wife, walked in, and
Introduce yourself?
Well, she didn't introduce herself. I saw her and I thought to myself, wow, that's a beautiful woman. And then I wasn't sure if, how to go about it, because, she was a testament. And must be a daughter. So I went about it in the official way. I called friends of mine to see if she'd be interested in going out, and she said, yeah. And then we went out and we got engaged a little later. But now I had given up my job at Waverly Shul, and I was now looking for another shul Well, another thing is to stay there. Now I was getting married. I needed to earn a living to. So
after traveling to New York for all those years to look for a wife, it happened in Africa.
Yeah, but I wouldn't have met her in Africa if I hadn't been traveled to New York all of those years, right?
I guess.
No, you have to go through those processes. Every part of your step of the way is a part of that step getting to the process of elimination. I had to, that's the way actually I believe in it. That's every step we take, everything that we go through is part of that journey towards that. Yeah. And then I was looking for another place. Waverly had already hired somebody else. It turned out that the shul in Cape Town in Claremont was looking for a balkara. They were looking for They were looking for a chazan who could also be a balkara, but they wanted somebody who could. They wanted a package.
Wanted a Swiss
So I called them and I said to them, guys, listen, I'm not a balkara and I'm not going to pretend to be a balkara. I can lane, but that's not what I do. I said, but let me come out for a Shabbos and show you what I can do for a Shabbos, and then we can discuss it. You have nothing to lose. And so I went out there for a
Drove or flew?
Flew.
Flew.
It's a 14-hour drive.
Okay.
Now, with the family, we used to drive often. But when you go by yourself, you don't drive. And then I was there for Shabbos, and they offered me a position to become a house in there. And so we got married. A month later, we moved to Cape Town. And that was a year's honeymoon in one of the most beautiful places on earth. Cape Town was just, what a gift, what a gift it was. Wow. To be able to to live there for a year. The community was beautiful and they were great. And we lived in Claremont in the mountains. Oh, it was incredible.
Cape Point, what's it called?
Claremont. We lived
What's the end called? Cape Point?
Yeah, Cape Point is a point. Is close by that. And and then one day I was there for a year renegotiating
The contract?
because it was and I got a call. I remember where I was standing. I got a call. It was Harold Novick. Was it Harold that called me? Who was the chairman of Sydenham Shul. Now, Sydenham Shul is the pulpit for Chazanim in South Africa, and one of the, I've told people about it, but not this way.
So you got that call? You got the call?
I got a call, and that was quite an amazing call because Sydenham Shul was the pulpit.
End all be all.
Huh?
The end all be all.
Yeah, and they had their Chazzan and choir was touring around the world doing concerts and stuff like that. And so, if you get that offer, I went out to Johannesburg with Tina, and we met with Stanley Seif and the committee and Rabbi Goldman, and we
How many years?
I was there for 16 years.
In a choir?
I had a choir. But I fundamentally transformed the service from what was, when I arrived, a service of people watching the Chazan to people participating. And I remember when I first came there, I would clap with something. People looked at me as if I was so crazy, especially if I did it when I did it the first time, which was during Kol Nidre. I'm kidding. It was true. But it took a while to kind of get people used to this whole idea of participating, and so that was we had great music. Great.
When I heard you in Sydenham, I saw how engaging you were with the crowd. That was really impressive. That was that.
You were there. What year were you there?
Wow. I would say 20 years ago?
Well, that was...
1 second. 39, 29, 19. No, maybe 16 years ago?
Yeah, so 16 years ago, I would have been in Sydenham for 4 or 5 years. Because I left Sydenham in 2021. And it was challenging.
Did you ever audition in New York shows?
There's an interesting story, but I hesitate to tell it because there was
Tell the story without names.
there was a whatever. I don't know if I auditioned, but
You didn't audition. You did audition.
I went to a shul to kind of. It's a story that I don't want to
Say
tell.
the shul. Say without the name. Without the shul.
Huh?
Say it without anything. This is interesting. Hey, we need good content.
There was a Chazzan in America who stopped me from joining the shul, which I can understand because he was the Chazzan of the shul. Didn't want to have somebody else, although I wasn't competing with him. But he later on stopped me even from singing at a concert with him, and that was very telling. It was very interesting, that experience. It's not important who it was.
But you're saying there are a lot of politics in
Yeah. It's
performing
like
world.
what is it? Kol Uman saying, people.
Kol
think
Uman
it's competition.
translate.
And there was a great artist, a great musician. I can't remember who he was. That said, music is spiritual. The music business is not. And that's the way it is. And people and unfortunately, people would expect. You would expect maybe to think that. It would be different. Shul business was a place of holiness, but at the end of the day, I honestly believe that that's how life meant to be. That was meant to be. Nobody can cause anything to you that's not meant to be. So it wasn't meant to be, and whatever it was. But that doesn't take away from the fact that the guy.
Would you consider a full-time position now, or you
I would.
want to freelance?
No, I would consider it. I would consider it if it's the right place and I could make the right.
But now you live in Atlanta.
We just moved to Atlanta.
You think you would go weekends, I guess, or how would you do it?
Well, I don't know.
The right deal is the right deal.
Exactly. If I got an offer, I couldn't refuse.
Wow. When was the last time the last time you were classing full time? How many years ago?
It was when I left Sydenham, 2021.
4 years ago.
4 years, yeah. 4 years.
Do you miss it?
I miss it. Yeah, I do. I absolutely do.
Did you think you would miss it?
I said that I wouldn't look for a full-time position again after that. I said I wouldn't do that until I've done my stint, but I miss it. I miss that engagement with the people.
You never really put any albums.
Sorry?
You never put any albums.
I did. I put out a couple in South Africa. I put out one in 2000 and...
Really? Jewish or not?
Yeah, cantorial. It's on Apple. It's called Classical Compositions. I did it with Mordechai Sobel.
How many songs?
10 pieces.
Really?
And that was in 2004. Long time ago. Then I did one in 2013, which was like, I think I was smoking like a chimney at the time. With them.
Did you ever
Once I was in South Africa,
you didn't leave.
I was parked there. And then I went into business as well. I had businesses and I
So what was that like?
What's that?
What was that like?
It was good. It was good. I was in China twice a year. I used to supply the retail stores. But in the end of the day, and now when I'm, getting back into focusing on the music, that's me. That's my passion. And when you can reach people and open their hearts, that's a gift because.
What do you think when you got into business? You thought it would get you rich, or you thought it was your passion?
I thought. Well, in South Africa, there wasn't much of a growth from a musical perspective.
Stagnant.
And what happened was, in South Africa, was when I came there, the rand, which was a South African currency, was valued at 5 rand to the dollar. And basically, the currency crashed. So there's a limit to how much a shul, or any institution, or any business can start raising money. So when I first came there, I was making a great salary, and it allowed me to fully support myself and my family and carry on doing businesses and stuff like that on the side. I was doing property. I had property, which I still own a couple of worthless properties in Johannesburg.
You needed to make more money and you didn't want to talk.
Sorry?
You needed to make more money.
I needed to make more money, and also
talk.
I wanted to experience that because, as I say, rabbis and chazanim, or rabbis, talk the whole time about having a munah and bitachon. Their munah and bitachon is simply mostly in the committee. Provided that they have a munah that the committee and members are not going to drop dead, and the biggest supporters from the shul are going to carry on supporting them, that's their munah bitachon. And I'm not belittling it at all, but I'm just kind of dramatizing it. But a business person, you have to develop that sense of trust and emunah and surrendering and bitachon, and that's I learned a lot of it through business. That whole other side of development as a human being and as a Jew, which I didn't have being in shul business the whole time, and that's for me has been priceless. Challenging, challenging, very challenging.
What do you enjoy the most about the arts
Arts.
or performing? What gets you excited?
I get like when I connect with the people, there's like I get into like almost like a zone. It's like yeah. When I connect with people, it's like a soul to soul connection, and that has less to do with performance. It's fascinating. It's very interesting. It has less to do with performing than just being, and it being a keli, being a vessel through which an energy comes through, and when that connection happens, that's a very special. Those are special moments.
What is your favorite compliment to get you?
My favorite
Favorite type of compliment when you're performing?
when I'm performing.
Or after, whatever.
People tell me I made them cry. I'm never sure if that's a compliment or it's like you made me cry tonight. I was like, oh, sorry. No, I think that it's a good question actually. My favorite compliment. I think that I moved somebody, that I inspired them, that I moved somebody. Yeah. Like when people tell me, "Oh, you sang so great. Your voice is so good." That's not that interesting. If it's my self consciousness comes along and says, he's talking. He's just being nice." Because I had that internal. I hate listening to myself after a show. I can't. And when I listen to my own singing, it's very difficult for me to become very critical. So that kind of thing doesn't really. But if somebody said that I moved them or I inspired them, then that means that I delivered what music is really about, which is a soul. It's a deep. You know, my mother had recently passed away from Alzheimer's, and she it was progressive disease, and as she got worse and worse and more well, I'm not sure what the word is, but she became more and more unaware of what was going on around her. And music was something that would come and sing, like my siblings would sing, and she would join in the song. You know, she couldn't talk at the time, but she would join in the song. It was like this. Eventually, that also went. So music is something very, very deep in the soul. What is it? The pen of the soul. Music is really deep, and you know, yeah. So when you can reach somebody on that open, and that's the best part.
What's your opinion about people who try to be too creative?
In what way?
They try to do something totally new in the music or the arts, and people just don't connect. Is music about being creative, or is it about connection?
The person who's doing the music, the creator, has a need to create. In fact, most of the time, the problem is to hold back. You know, the whole idea of commercializing certain kinds of things. I just have a need to. Singers and artists, and performing artists, or whatever artists, there's something inside of us that needs to be expressed. And you could, from an expression, like Chassidus would say, so you need to express yourself. What's that? Very still, you need. So you have to look at that as that's you were given a certain way of expression that needs to be transferred to it's your way of bringing godliness and light to people and to the world, right? So there's that constant inner spring that's kind of trying to break out, and I think that a lot of artists we don't really consider
the audience.
No, I'm saying like it's yeah. So a lot of the time it's about holding back. You can't accomplish the things you'd actually. First of all, because there's so many things and so many ideas and so much. But by definition, the artist is the person who's coming up with new ideas and new things and so somebody who's not creating anything new. There are many singers and many people that kind of just repeat.
Have you ever composed, Yudi?
I haven't composed. I've written some songs. It's something that I really would love to. I would love to.
Do you think you can?
I think that deep down inside of me, there's that place, and maybe one day it'll come out. I do think that, but right.
What's a performer's relationship to composition? Do they want to do it? Do they feel guilty that they're singing everyone else is? Like, what's the feeling?
It's interesting because if you look,
because obviously the performance is your own composition when you're performing.
if you're a singer-songwriter, yeah, I think that if you look at opera, for example, and in that world, none of the opera singers ever composed any of their own. They sang. In fact, if you look at it, when they talk about a singer, an opera singer doing a role, they're often referred to it as interpreting the role. They won't say he sang the role. They would say this opera singer Caruso interpreted the role of whatever, Rodolfo in La Boheme.
Looking back, do you think you should have toured more while you're a Chazzan full time?
I couldn't have toured more whilst I was in South Africa. So it was a decision that I took to stay in South Africa. I look back at my life and say everything that I did was I had a beautiful time in South Africa. It was very great.
You once told me a very good line. You said it's called humble pie.
Oh, yeah.
So what's it like to have to sort of build your brand now in the U.S.? What's that experience like?
England humbled me. I mean, I grew up in London, so I figured we'll move back to London as a stepping stone. All my kids are British. My wife is American, so for us it was easy to go from South Africa to London because the only one who needed papers was my wife. England was an interesting experience, let's just say. I wouldn't say England humbled me. I coming from a situation where I was,
the king of the
castle, and I had businesses. COVID wiped me out, and I was riding high, and it had come pretty easy for me. And then having literally starting again, it's a fascinating idea. I mean, think about it. When
you were the king of the castle, but you didn't have any recognition outside of a small little town.
Well, it didn't matter. It didn't matter. In my head, I was the king of my own little castle in my head. I'm saying in every way, I was doing well. Right. Financially, we were good, and it was all good. We had a great thing, and the truth is that this will explain that Malchus is relative to other people, not what you have in your own head. That's the reality. So, but starting again, like when you're a child, it takes a long time to go from being a child to learning new things and becoming an adult, right? It takes years. Now you're suddenly, at my age, suddenly doing that again, starting again. So it's like, wait a minute, it takes a long time to go from childhood and to grow and to learn all of these things. But I'm well on the way. Thank God it's...
How long did it take to realize that when you went to London that no one knows who you are? Coming from Sedgwick, everyone knew you, the Chazzan with the choir.
No, but I'll tell you what. It's not that nobody knew who I was. They knew who I was, but they didn't care. Now that's even worse. If they didn't know who I was, I would have been offended. But they knew who I was, and they're like, so.
So you never were in mainstream Jewish music per se.
No.
And the irony is when I brought you to KMR for that interview, all they talked about was Silver Zammer.
Yeah. That's interesting. I do think that like now I'm falling back on a lot of the where I come from musically. I grew up Kalbach. If I put on a Kalbach recording, not the ones that he did in his last years where somebody was trying to commercialize him and put some kind of fake music behind him. But when he was like, it takes me to like a completely, if I want to get into a creative space, I just put that on. Also sometimes the Babich Nigunim, the old Nichayachs, these like raw, and like these recordings that are like.
What do you prefer, opera or Jewish music?
That's a good question. How do you?
I didn't ask you that question before.
What's that?
People ask you that question before?
Yeah, people are. But it
seems like you have this mixed love.
Music is music. I love hip hop. I love good rap. I don't mind. Yeah. Let me tell you something. In Africa, their relationship with music is so much deeper than the European relationship with music. It starts with rhythm, and the Africans have a natural rhythm. You know, when they say white man can't dance. You ever see people on stage, a black person, he's moving around, or she's moving around, and they're like, it's like, wow, and then a white person tries to move around, and okay, they can dance, but not like we have the Europeans ballet, which is but there is a visceral connection to singing and to dance in Africa, which is unparalleled, I believe. Unparalleled. I had a group, myself and 3 African, black Africans, and we sang fusions of opera and Jewish music. And so we sang in Beijing, China, at the Pop Music Festival.
Is rhythm considered music or?
Rhythm is a fundamental of music. It's one of the elements.
It's not notes, there's no harmony, no.
Rhythm is, if you have a song without rhythm, you don't, and that's, by the way, one of the issues with Chazanis. Having grown up with Chazanis, I had a very tough time with rhythm because a lot of it wasn't in a rhythmical pattern. Although a lot of it was, but we sang it like that. And a lot of people today don't realize that. When they sing Chazanis, they don't realize you need to follow a pulse because that's the energy. Music is like a train moving forward. And if you need to hop on that train is moving, right? But if you just stand and you're singing without the energy of rhythm, then it's like, tone is nice, but...
Yeah, who's your favorite contemporary Jewish composer?
When you say Jewish music, what do I like about Jewish? Does Jewish mean religious, Hasidic music?
Religious, yeah.
Who's composing music? I think there's some good guy. I have to say.
Ignorance. Contemporary means they're living, or it just means recent?
You said contemporary.
Yeah. What does that word mean?
Contemporary. It could be they're dead.
Right.
But,
Okay, that's what I thought. I thought it used the word.
Contemporary means like kind of today or.
So who's your favorite? Do you have a favorite?
Composer?
Yeah.
Shlomo Carlebach, by far.
Favorite singer?
Like also Benzin Sheker, Moshe Frank. It's beautiful.
Who's your favorite Chazzan?
Contemporary Chazzan?
Of all time. Ever?
Ever, Yosel Rosenberg, without that.
Why so?
He was just, first of all his voice, but besides his voice and his, he took, when you listen to his pieces, it's like, he writes at the front of his book, he writes, I'm composing pieces so that they should be as, I don't know if he uses the word pleasurable or as satisfying as the equivalent secular music of the time. So he was a composer. He wrote. Today we listen to music. It's all about getting to the climax of it. So
are there any current composers of Chazanis? Does really exist?
There are.
There are.
They're in the conservative and reform movement.
There is.
There's a guy Meir Finkelstein who's made some beautiful, but the style is different. It's not the same.
Who's your favorite living Chazan? Getting touchy here.
Yeah.
Who's your favorite living? I know people have no problem saying who their favorite dead people are. Who's your favorite living Chazan?
You call it a life?
Who's your favorite living Chazan?
There's some great Chazanim out there. You have.
Who's your fave?
I don't have a favorite. I think there's some.
Who do you like?
I think there's like you have guys like I think Nissim Sal sings beautifully, and I think that Moti Boya sings very beautifully. There's some,
okay.
Yeah.
Could we see you coming up with the album soon, Yudi?
Absolutely. It is. It's on the cards. I don't think it will be a sort of a traditional Chazanis album. I sang last year on the New York catwalk, on the actual catwalk. So the designer, his name is Kobe Alpern. And Kobe Alpern is an Israeli designer, and he was working for some other design houses for many years, and then he opened his own thing. And after October 7th, he was having a show on the New York Fashion Week. And he was inspired to do something, he wanted to do something, inspirational and Jewish. So he made the theme of the clothing Friday night. And the whole theme was he was remembering when he was a child how when people went to shul, they dressed beautifully. He grew up in, I think, a religious home. And he always remembered that the women dressed beautifully and the men dressed beautifully, and this peaceful feeling that came into the house on a Friday, and everybody going to shul together and coming home. And so he recreated. I wasn't invited, but I heard that after the show, he actually almost had a Friday night kind of meal. So somebody contacted me who I haven't spoken to in years from Israel. He said they're looking for a guy, a cantor, to come along, to sing. He wants to do it himself. So yeah, I said that's a good opportunity, beautiful, and we came here and I sang Eishes Chayil. So these girls were walking down the catwalk and I was Eishes Chayil, me inside, and it was an incredible moment of spirituality in this place of materialism. It was beautiful. It was a great thing.
Yudi, what do you think about the Chabad or firm approach of not listening to non-Jewish music? What's your opinion about that? As someone who dances in all worlds.
I grew up like that.
Correct. So what's your opinion? If you don't mind getting a little
I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem. I think that I'll answer it. I have a clear answer. There has to be a standard. And that standard is whatever the standard is. Halacha is a standard, Chassidishkeit is a standard, whoever has a standard. And I also at the same time believe that every individual goes on their own journey. And to find your relationship with God, to find your relationship with yourself and with the universe, you go on your own journey. So for those that choose to grow up in that way, as long as it's presented in a positive way. One thing I will say, if it is, if you listen to Goshen music, I'll slap you, or if you listen to Goshen music, you're a frayak. That I don't agree with, because that's not what it's about. If, however, you're bringing up your family like that, and you're bringing them up in the ways of Chassidus and the Rebbe, and that's what you've chosen, and it's a beautiful Yiddishkeit, Chassidishkeit in your home. Oh, come on, it's not. My kid has gone to Brumwa. I didn't bring him up to not listen to Goshen Nigunim, and he's in Brumwa. What must I do? That's his choice. So
I was recently speaking to my wife's aunt, and I asked her. I said, "Do you read the Omni magazine?" Mishpacha, very firm. She said, "No." I said, "Why not?" She says, "I'm very careful who I want to be influenced and affected by. So I don't want to be in the cradle of the arms of someone who I don't know, I don't trust." So, okay, I think it's time to go, Yeti. The owner is saying our stay has ended.
We've overstayed our welcome.
Anyway, Yeti, thanks so much.
That's
Appreciate
great,
your time.
Yeah.
I'm happy we did it.